Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we'd like to remind everybody that when we're going through this meeting, you do have any opinions, that James and his crew know what you think, agree or disagreements. And we're going to start with our agenda. The one is, what is your favorite family, friends, tradition, or vacation? Well, I would start out. If you want to put it in the chat, go and put it in the chat. If you want to tell it in recording, you can do that too. Mine would have to be, I'm George, the chair, co-chair, and on the committee. What is your favorite family, favorite tradition, or vacation? Mine would have to be going out fishing to a place called Lake Selmac many years ago. Big lake out there, store out there. We get done fishing. We used to have boats out there. You can be on a lake. It was a really big lake out there, out next to Cave Junction. I'm going to call on Dion.
Yeah, hey, Dion, executive support for the sponsor, Jillian Johnson. Actually, first thing that popped in my head was candied yams at Thanksgiving. It's gotta be there. It's gotta be there. And I'll kick it over to Vanessa.
Our favorite tradition is the beach. We have to have a few long beach days where I'm so crunchy and toasty. I regret spending so many hours, but we like to do full beach days. Can't say where because we're always moving. So this will probably be our last one in Florida. So hopefully I get to hang out with some manatees again before I leave. And I'll popcorn to Azucena.
Okay. So my favorite, the one thing that we do every time we whenever we travel, we try to find a cross from wherever we are. And it can be a little adventure because sometimes we go to places where Christianity or Catholicism is not really big. So sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't, but and sometimes we have to go to multiple places. But if we get it, we like cherish them. We have a whole wall that we're building with crosses now. And I will pass it on to, I see Paul.
Good morning, everyone. I am a public services representative and my favorite family tradition is always Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is my favorite thing. Before I joined the state, I was a restaurant manager for about 20 years, and when the holidays got to me, I was always thrilled because it was a day off and the phone didn't ring, and I got to enjoy the cooking process, not just be producing food for everyone. So, and I'm gonna choose. Let's go to Andrew.
Morning, everybody. So for me, a kind of newer tradition, I think the past 4 or 5 years, my family has done around the holidays is, if anyone's familiar with it's a YouTube interview show called Hot Ones. They eat a series of hot sauces from 1 to 10, varying in spiciness, and you can buy the sauces as they come out each year. My family has bought those around the holidays. We make a bunch of chicken wings and we go through each sauce and see how far each of us can make it. So yeah, I think the last 4 or 5 holidays we've done that, and it's been really fun to see who can make it through. And sorry, I will pass to Veronica.
Good morning. My name is Veronica. And I muted myself again accidentally. Sorry about that. My favorite tradition or vacation, I think it's going to be 2 in 1, but beach trips anywhere in the beach, Florida, West Coast, Virgin Islands, anywhere really. So actually leaving later this week to go back to the West Coast for a little bit. So looking forward to that. And I will pass it on to Vixen.
Vixen Wex, and I work for Northeast Oregon Network in Wallowa County, Eastern Oregon. My favorite tradition is kind of not normal because I don't really like Thanksgiving because, well, I do, but we do it a different way. But we every after Halloween, and we've been doing this for about 14 years now, we collect all the pumpkins around from our small towns in our community and we haul them out to our cabin. And my kids, we do a pumpkin shoot. And so that's how my kids grew up learning to shoot. And then the deer get to eat all the pumpkin leftovers. And we always pray that maybe we'd grow pumpkins in the spring, but we've never grown a pumpkin. I will popcorn it off to Brandy.
Hi, everyone. Brandy Strom with Maslow Project here in the Grants Pass area. And I'm just going to say anytime there's a lot of food, I'm happy. So like Christmas, Thanksgiving, anything like that. I'll pass it to Susan.
Susan Garcia with the Community Health Centers of Lane County. And for my birthday weekend, it's usually near Labor Day, I go hiking with my kids and we try to find a waterfall. That's my favorite. Pass it to Maria Park.
Hello, good morning. Maria Park, Senior Program Manager at Asian Open Service Center, co-chair here. And our favorite kind of activities is bowling or movies. There's about like 10 or so cousins that we will go bowling or to the movies together. I will pass it to Intu.
Hello. Okay, here we go. Community Program Coordinator with the Asian Health and Service Center. Pick up Christmas tree every year with my kids, and now they're older. From kind of a couple of years ago, I start changing it to like getting a potted small, like, evergreen Christmas tree decorated, and then give it away after the Christmas. Okay, let's see. I'm not sure who hasn't gone.
Maria, and child care sources, and James.
Maria Watson.
Hi, I'm Mariah. I'm the resource coordinator at Yellowhawk Tribal Health Center. Friends or traditions, I would just say our cultural traditions that we have for our tribe here, gathered around our first foods. We just had Root Feast. So we move in circular rotation with our foods and such. I'm excited that it's about time to go salmon fishing on the river and stuff. So either gaffing or fish and pole fishing for salmon. Like huckleberry season and stuff like that when we get to go pick huckleberries. And so I think cultural traditions are my favorite. I'm not sure who hasn't gone yet either. Anybody wants to hop in there?
Well, there's Sydney, Maria Gonzalez, April, and James, and the resource.
All right, James, to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. James Barta, facilitating here. I'm the engagement strategies coordinator here at the State for Organ Eligibility Partnership. And I'd say my favorite vacation / tradition might be going to this Olympic National Park, going into Enchanted Valley. It's just such a lovely, lovely place, 13 miles in, and it's fun to go with friends and just wake up by waterfalls and whatnot. So Yeah, as if one friend put it, if unicorns existed, they would live there. But I will pass it over to our neighbor impact team about April.
My favorite family tradition, I guess, would just be deviled eggs at any family gathering. My grandma, Baba, as we called her, used to make them. She was the only one allowed to make them, and she would get mad because all the kids would eat them before dinner. But then now my mom makes them, and I wouldn't tell her this, but they're not as good. And she makes so many that we just eat them the minute she like puts the tray down. Everybody's gobbling them, which also used to be our last name. So Thanksgiving was always fun. So Sydney, you're up.
Sydney, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Okay, well, maybe
Go to Maria.
well,
I'm
Maria
sorry.
put hers in the chat. She was having technical issues as well.
Okay, where
Great.
was the woman with the resource center?
That was April.
Oh, okay,
George, do you want me to read Maria's from the
yes,
chat?
yes.
Okay. So Maria's having audio issues. My name is Maria Gonzalez, lead with the applicant portal tech team. My family's favorite tradition is going camping to the dunes. We love riding our RZRs and quads.
And Sydney's having difficulties too, I see.
Yeah, she put hers in the chat as well. Going to Michigan each summer. Visiting family, nice.
Okay, I think we've got everybody. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, so well, this is where I have the tough task of handing over to Andrew to talk about quickly run through our recap of where things are that we've put into the pipeline.
Yeah, so request 35, canceling appointments requiring a note or reason for them in applicant portal is I think final piece of that is part E, and that is going to be going in as part of the excuse me, sorry. So this is the mobile part of that, adding it to the mobile app, and that's going to be added to CR 800363, which is a larger request that was approved by this group as well for a CR, which is self-scheduling an applicant portal. We have had what we call a business objectives meeting. So that's when the me as the lead business analyst on the CR, and then the CR sponsor, as well as our spokesperson, all meet together, kind of have a brainstorm session to make sure that we're including everything that we need and everything that's going to make this ask successful in this process. So we've completed that. And then the next step is for our developer partner, Deloitte, to draft what we call a level of effort. So they're going to be telling us kind of what it's going to take to get all these changes made. And from there throughout, what I expect to happen throughout the summer is we're going to have some design meetings. And that's, I think, in the last meeting, we talked a little bit about including some participants from this group in those meetings. So working on getting this, ready to go into the system next March will be a process that we go through throughout the next year, and we'll get you guys updates as we have more. Request 39, add appointment cancellation details to worker portal, went in with the April 9th build last week. Request 50, adding ERDC waitlist status to applicant portal and the mobile app, will be going in with the build in May, so a month from now. One thing I want to mention is it will most likely be just the applicant portal side currently. Mobile app will come later. We've had a little bit of delay with our updates to the mobile app due to how we host updates for the mobile app. So that's being worked out kind of behind the scenes. So mobile app updates will come a little bit later.
Andrew?
James. Or
No.
George, sorry.
Yeah. Going back to the next one before this.
Yes. 39.
Yes. Can you explain on 35E to the group what self-schedule is in the applicant portal?
Yeah, so this was brought, probably 6 months ago now or so. We were talking about a selection of different CRs that we wanted to put forth. And one of those that we decided to do was self-schedule in applicant portal. So the idea here is that currently our functionality is just to be able to cancel an appointment or to cancel an appointment and request the agency to contact the online portal user to have them rescheduled. But what we're asking here is for all of that to be able to be done by the online portal user themselves. So being able to select an appointment time, reschedule an appointment time, set all that up on their own without having to contact DHS to do that for them. So things we've kind of thrown out there is, I don't know if anyone's familiar with how the Oregon DMV works with self-schedule, is kind of something that we're thinking that hopefully we could move towards something that works like that.
One more question. When they go to do the self-scheduling for the applicant portal, when they go in, will they have a calendar in there? They'll select a date, or is it automatically will come up?
So we haven't really gotten to designing it yet. Some things that we said we want it to do is to be able to give someone the soonest available time based on a type of appointment that they select. So if someone chooses they want a virtual appointment, they'll get the next available virtual appointments in a list with basically anywhere in the state can do a phone or virtual appointment. If they're selecting somewhere face-to-face and they want to go into an office, we give them a selection of their closest offices and the soonest available times there. But so far that is just still in kind of the brainstorming stage. As we have these further design meetings throughout the rest of the year, is when we'll actually know exactly what it will look like. And certainly as we're seeing that come to life, we can bring examples of that to this group to show what's that starting to look like.
And is this going to help with the person with a disability that's blind? We'll talk to them in order to set up a self-schedule.
Yeah, so all of our changes that go into the online portal, we've designed to be able to work with screen readers and things like that. So certainly that'll be considered as we're doing this as well, to make sure that any changes that we're making fit within accessibility guidelines and are usable with screen readers.
Okay.
Okay, request 59, update the one online portal income screens to display only income detail fields after add income is selected. We previously made this update with earned income, but with the build last week, we updated self-employment, unearned, and specific income types as well. So this helps kind of clarify when someone has an existing income record that they should be taking a look at that income record first. And then if they need to specifically add new income, there's a button to do that. The way it was displaying before was a little bit confusing because it would show both the existing record and then all of the new fields to add a new income record. And this was causing some confusion where records were being added more than one time. So that went in last week. Request 60, message center update to show which program a message is referring to. We've added a column to show which program each message is referencing. Also, that went in with last week's build. And also, this one went in with last week's build as well. Request 61, a reminder to add self-employment expenses to the tax deduction screen and add deductions reference guide. Request 62, coming with the June 11th build, is updating wording for rare, which was reading as Research Assistance for Rural Environments. It's been corrected to the actual name, which is Resource Assistance for Rural Environments. Request 72, adding an open text field for unearned income on the other income taxable and other income non-taxable types. So this is something we talked about. Usually occurs with, or often occurs with things like paid leave Oregon, where it is other income taxable or non-taxable, but there was no way to specify like, okay, you've told us this is other income, what exactly is this? So now they'll have a free text field to say like, this is paid leave Oregon or anything else that might apply.
Well, thank you. We have our old requests that are, I suppose they're not really in the pipeline yet, but nonetheless, there's things that we've been working on. There are, wow, there's just so many different builds here. Brain is clouded on which one this is, but the asset verification edition, this was the, we were getting more information on this, Andrew, so.
Yeah, so we've talked about this one with the group a couple times. This is one that we needed to get buy-in from our policy with the non-Magi team. They initially came back, said we're not really against it, but the concern is that we don't really know who needs to complete asset verification until eligibility has been run. With non-Magi, eligibility isn't run automatically in the online portal. It's done on the worker portal side. So then I think the last time we talked about this was we were going to try and have a way to identify for this to be completed once it's identified that it's required for an individual. So what we've come up with is a request that non-Magi policy has agreed to as well, a request that when someone has been determined that they need AVS, when this has been pended for, in addition to sending out a paper copy in the mail or being able to complete it verbally over the phone with a recording, we will also trigger a process in the online portal to allow them to consent to that in the online portal. So just it'll be adding a third way, a more modern way, and potentially quicker way for them to consent if they're not able to do that over the phone with a worker. So hopefully we'll speed it up too without having to wait for that form to come in the mail. So yeah, that work item has been submitted. And
we have the defect.
The one below that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So this one, I think Susan brought it to us initially. We were kind of unsure of where this would fall, if this was functioning as designed or if this was a defect. We were determined to have it was determined to be a defect. There's an issue with an update in the system at one point that was saying any individual over 65 or older doesn't need to complete this information, which is true if they're the only person in the household, or if all of the people in the household are 65 or older, they don't need to complete the annual income information for eligibility that they would be qualified for. What this does impact is when there's an individual in the household under 65, the programs that they potentially qualify for require total household annual income. So in trying to make the process more streamlined for individuals over 65, we actually were causing the system to pen for this information for individuals under 65. So long story short, it was determined it shouldn't have been functioning that way. It was going to be a defect and it will be fixed. I don't have the actual date. I apologize about that, but fix is coming soon on that one.
Phew.
Is there any questions for Andrew? Any concerns for Andrew? Now it's time for someone to speak up.
Andrew, I just have to say, I totally love the work you do. I love that you've given us this check-in. I can't tell you how much the work you do means to me as a community community partner that's working with these members. So thank you. Thank you.
No, thanks so much, Vixen. Glad you feel that way. Glad you're finding it helpful. And yeah, I think we have a good system here of getting feedback from partners and community members as well to help us make the best updates and fixes possible for our system. So I feel the same.
Andrew, I was just wondering, are you able to give me a quick briefing as a community partner? I noticed maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, all of the new options for inclusive on orientation, pronouns, all of that kind of stuff as an assister. Like now I'm noticing that there's just so much more added. Was that something that was stemmed from this work group that I missed a session, or was that the word kind of, if you have any history on that, how did that come to be?
Yeah, so that wasn't something that originated in this work group. We did talk about it, at least one session, I think maybe 2. So perhaps you weren't in attendance for that. That was a change request that came as part of related to Oregon administrative rules that are requiring us to communicate that information to partners downstream. So yeah, as you said, there's a lot of updates to gender identity. So what it is RealD and SOGI. So RealD is race, ethnicity, language, and disability demographics, and SOGI is sexual orientation and gender identity. In addition to that is pronouns. There was also some changes to how ethnicity and languages were laid out in the system. So there's been a little bit of a shift in the organization of where those questions apply. And then also, as you mentioned, pretty significant amount more of those questions. I think.
Do you know, did they plan on providing any training or anything like that to partners to help us understand what all of these, you know, all of the sectors and everything basically mean? It's kind of hard, you know, to explain it to a member who might need help if you're not even sure yourself. Or do you know, is there additional training or anything or follow-up that they plan on helping us with to understand it further and more for all of the different options?
Yeah, so there was some stuff that we provided to the CPOP group, the Community Partner Outreach, one of which was kind of just like a briefing sheet of what those changes are going to be. And then another was a video walkthrough that I did of kind of like where those changes are occurring, how they're laid out, and then some of the logic, the system logic behind how those are displaying. I can try and get that forwarded to you, but I would also say reach out to your regional outreach coordinator or someone else from CPOP to see if maybe there's something that they presented in their collaboratives that might be useful. But I can definitely send to you directly the materials that I created.
I can also send in the list of definitions for the SOGI terminology. My team is the kind of the training team who led the staff training in OEP. So we have that language and terminology, like what does this mean? Because I know we're getting a lot of questions around that. So I can also maybe send that to Andrew. So as you're sending everything else out, you can include that with them.
Sounds great. Thanks, Susanna.
Yeah, I know when I first came into this role, I was like, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Why don't we do this and that? And now I'm realizing that there's so many changes that are going in the system all the time that as community partners and as staff, it's just hard to keep up too. And so that's something that I'm sure, you know, especially our community partners appreciate, but it's something that I've grown to appreciate as well. You know, it doesn't mean we can't make these improvements and make these changes, but it's something to be cognizant. And one thing, a little bit of a non sequitur, I'm going to say one of the things on the agenda too is we get regular feedback from our director, Director Paksharesh, because I sent him a report, and he's been very impressed with our work, and is and at one point was wondering, you know, are we seeing changes in our feedback, changes in our surveys and such? And I had to tell him, it's like, well, our surveys don't, you know, it's just a few numbers basically that we get from people using the one system. So we don't have that level of feedback yet, but any anything that, any comments and changes that you have, we often hear the bad ones, but Vixen, it's delightful to hear the good ones as well. So, anything that you want to make sure our leadership knows about, be happy to relay that as well. So with that, any other questions or comments?
There is thing from Maria. Maria, did you want to add to what you were just saying?
Oh no, I was just saying thank you to Azucena. I'm assuming we'll get some follow-up materials. So yeah, I was just sharing that it has been a little challenging to kind of help interpret or translate those terms in the one system for our members, in all our different languages. So yeah.
Yeah, we've also been hearing that on the staff side. So what hopefully the document will send, it'll give you at least a definition of the things that you are supposed to be translating. And so the idea is, don't translate the terminology, but translate the meaning, which would be easier. But like, if that is, and we are working through how we can help translate to the most common languages, because we know there's a gap there, both for staff and obviously community partners. But if that still doesn't make sense, we do have like the open text field, right? And folks can enter in, however they respond. They don't have to necessarily like fit into a box. So we are also leaning heavily on using that open text field if folks are having a hard time like translating every single term.
Welcome, welcome, Judith.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Andrew? Judith, we were just going over request 64, 71, 62, and 72.
Right.
Anything we want to add before we go on?
No, I think I need to listen for a few minutes and get my bearings.
Okay.
I am going to have a question at the end of the meeting that I would like to ask you, George, and you, James.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to share our briefing sheet because instead of the presentation, just because it has a little more detail, but this is part of the agenda where we're going to dive into some new requests and we're going to see what you all think. We're going to need your input, and we have 4 new requests. And in the middle of this somewhere, well, we should take our break. I'm hoping that we wrap up, we don't have to do all 4, but we should wrap up around a little before 12:30. So we'll have a break in the middle too. But just to let you know, and again, it's the Andrew show. We are in your debt, Andrew.
Okay. 71 one that we already did.
Yeah, 71 we already did. I think.
Okay, cool. Sorry, never mind. So then, yeah, request 77, reporting a change about a household member leaving. Follow-up questions need to be clarified for many situations. So this question appears on the household information screen when you're entering additional household members. So after you've entered, say, a second or third household member, there's a question: is this household member living with the head of household? So if you answer anything other than yes, so either yes part-time, no temporarily away, or no, this secondary series of questions here, which on this screenshot we can see is what appears for no temporarily away. There's a number of different options, and I think the ask here is to clarify some of the language about what some of these may mean or how some of these display to make it more user-friendly. And yeah, sorry. So yeah, very clearly, like rules of shelter. I don't think that makes a lot of sense to an applicant portal user or an online portal user. It's something maybe like employment training, education, those might be okay. But I think we need to take a look at these and see what we really want to do to change it. So just to start with the first one, rules of shelter.
I was just thinking maybe we've got more screenshots.
Okay, yeah, if we want to look at those first too.
Yeah. This is just like, what is this? Yeah.
So this would then be if the response was no, there's a specific set of options for that. And then if the response is yes, part-time, there's a third set of options for that.
And I'll just remind you, you all have should have received this briefing sheet in your email Thursday evening. So but it's a pickle here.
Andrew, this is George. Where's the definition for RARI?
I think in this case, RARI is the name of the person. So that the way this question is phrased here is Rari living with Serenity. Rari would be the new household member that's been added, and Serenity would be the primary applicant or head of household.
Oh, so that's actually a name of a person.
It's the name of a person, yeah. And the way this works in the system is it, once you enter that name for that household member, it dynamically displays that person's name here. So
that explains it. Okay.
Yep.
So
I think.
I was just
sorry,
thinking,
James. Go ahead.
If anyone has a preference of which of these three options we should, take a bite of the apple, or Andrew, if you think there's one we should look at first.
I mean, if we just scroll up and start with the first one, maybe take a look at each one of these. So right off the bat, I'm going to be transparent. I don't really know what rules of shelter means, and I work for the agency, so it's confusing to me. I think it's probably confusing to others. So if someone's saying no, they're temporarily away due to rules of shelter, that may be something we need to follow up on, unless anybody else kind of has an idea of what that might mean.
Has anyone encountered these screens? Is this familiar? See some head nod.
Dixon has no clue.
I don't remember it being this detailed, but I'm assuming maybe the rules of shelter is if, for example, if someone was like maybe a houseless person, they might be in a shelter, and then maybe there's some rules at the shelter so that's why they're staying with someone else, or that's what I'm guessing.
I think that's a good suggestion, Maria. It could be that could be the case where they're only allowed a certain length of stay, and they need to go somewhere else before returning or something like that.
Yeah, women's shelter, and doesn't allow men.
Okay. So I have a feeling you're probably onto something there. So what is a better way to say something like that? Is one thing we want to think of.
Well, some of us will probably know what that means, and some of us it won't. In my perspective, rules of shelter would be, the way I looked at it would be a women's shelter, an organization that helps with alcohol and drug problem. And if you're going to put rules of shelter, you might want to put a definition there to it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a little behind here, but is this box only for staff?
No, this is on the online portal.
Wow, this is really confusing for online. If I saw this, it would be like, what?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's why this is a good topic to talk about, because I mean, as I mentioned, I was confused by it, and So trying to come up with some terms here that capture what we want to get out of this, but making it more understandable for the online portal user. Because yeah, anybody could come across this if they're reporting one of these options for a household member.
So I Googled it first, rules of shelter and social services, and it says shelter is not a home, but rather a stepping stone to a permanent housing and rejoining the community. So there's certain expectations for participants while in the shelter. So I'm thinking rules of shelter, whether it's rehab or whether it's um um yeah, because this is that they're temporarily away.
Well, so we could say rules of temporary shelter.
But that doesn't still, for me, that wouldn't clarify what that means. I think I would have to have examples of what would determine rules of shelter.
Yeah. And even shelter is an odd name. I mean, rules of temporary housing, I think, might help, and then put a description somewhere in this, because yeah, it is definitely, yeah.
April? Go ahead.
I feel like for us to really make a informed decision about this is we should actually know what the rules, like the OARs, are about this, which seems to be somebody outside of our group right now, because otherwise we're just guessing, and it could be something really important to the OARs and not to the actual general public who has to use this stuff. And then I think once we know that, then we can actually make a better decision on what would be best for our communities.
Thanks, April. Great point. So I think maybe I think we will need to take this back a little bit so we can present this in a better way, a more easy way for us to come up with usable things. Maybe something we can do right now in the meantime is take a look at for each of these options, which ones we feel like we need to be more clear about. So there's a few here I think that maybe might be able to stay the same. Like if someone's temporarily away for employment or training or for education, or for caring for a sick individual, those seem a little bit more straightforward to me. But things like rules of shelter or social service, not foster care, those we may need to work on some additional wording for.
Well, if you're going to have child returning from foster care and then social service, not foster care, how would you all put in to replace those? Go ahead, Vixen.
Well, I guess my question is, because this is what I usually get from community members. One, why do they need to know this? Why does Oregon Health Plan need to know this? Or obviously for TANF, for SNAP, I get it for TANF, for SNAP, but I guess that's where this application is getting really depth, because like if somebody is coming in to me and I can only do a medical application, that's all I can do, and these questions come up, I won't have the basis to even understand why these questions are being asked. So there's a catch-22 in why they're being asked, because if the client asks us, why is this being asked? And you're like, well, it doesn't pertain to what you're applying for, then they're like, why do I have to answer it? So there's that. And then I agree that rules of shelter and the social service, not foster care, need more explanation, because I could not explain that to somebody else. I have seen these, but again, if you're only doing medical, I'm not sure.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Maria?
Andrew, you know how like there's a little question mark there next to the why is it, like, does that help explain anything about those options at all? Or is it just answering, like, it's just for the question itself?
I'm thinking it's just for the question. I'm actually right now trying to get to that screen in the live system so I can put in the chat what that says, because I think that's important for us to know kind of
Mhm.
see exactly what that says. But maybe it has something. Maybe that's something we can add to and help clarify.
Right, right. Like, yeah, I'm wondering what we can see when we click on the question, and then whatever, maybe we can kind of try to add some more information about these options there too, if possible.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Inja.
I had few cases that the college students who the primary residence is in Portland area, but they go to school either Corvallis or Eugene, things like that. Then we do the temporary away, and the reason would be education. And even though we are just we can only help with the medical application, sometimes those students will apply for SNAP program at their where they are at school, and then that can kind of cause, sometimes I have seen some of those like a CCO changes or CCO issue, with the medical being, in Portland area, but they're applying for SNAP in Corvallis and things like that. So I thought this question would be kind of important in those cases, because some of those students want to have a CCO in Portland area where their parents are, or sometimes they want the CCO to be in Corvallis. And plus, when they apply SNAP, it also complicates those situations. And so, yeah, I have seen these questions, and sometimes when I call CP line to resolve some of those issues, that we will need to go back to this and maybe update it and things like that. I just wanted to mention that.
So what would you put up there to help yourself and others?
Yeah, so then when students when they are student and they are not with parents, all year long. So, we're sometimes, because a lot of times the application was, this answer be, yeah, I mean, they have it, yes, but then now student moves away, then we will need to change this to no, temporarily away. So when they apply for SNAP and, if they want to change the CCO, that kind of can be done. I mean, most of the time we'll just have to kind of, so CP line, they would have to do it manually, or, do some work done to make sure that it doesn't, that they can kind of, do what the member need. So like even they apply SNAP in Corvallis, they still have a health share of Oregon CCO, or, vice versa.
Andrew, did you get that?
I did get that. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I think we introduced something here. It's a little bit hard to, I don't think we're going to come to a conclusion today. I think we need to do a little bit more work on our end to have a better conversation about this. I think we're having good ideas shared here that'll help kind of guide us, and we'll probably end up bringing this one back next time with a better proposal, at least to get us started on a conversation, and that being a better understanding of what each of these mean. And then, as you can see, I put the help text. There's two sets of help text here that we're talking about. The first one for is the individual living with the head of household. It seems pretty substantial, and we have a good kind of description of what each of those options mean. The second one, it just says select all values that are true. So I think that's something we're going to want to look at making a little bit better if we can, because that doesn't really provide a lot of help, in my opinion. So I guess with that, my proposal would be, if anyone has anything else to share on this topic, please feel free to do so. If not, I would say let's table this one until next meeting when we can come back with a little bit more of a guided discussion with us having a better understanding of exactly what we're asking with each one of these options, or what we're stating with each one of these options.
And,
Okay.
and Susan, you wrote something in the chat a while back. I just want to make sure that if you had anything to add to that.
No, it's just a guess about rules of shelter, but who knows? We'll find out later.
Okay, George.
Dion, we could make sure we table this for next meeting in May. Anybody else wants to give Andrew opinions with these? And Andrew, what's the deadline that you want our information for these before implementing them?
We don't really have a deadline with new requests, at least nothing that's not like an emergency. I think we're trying to get this in as soon as possible to make it a better experience for users, but this has been this way, since this portal was designed. So we're only looking to make it better. And I would say, let's expect to talk about it next time. And I will commit to having more information to kind of better help guide the discussion. Because like I said, even now, as I'm looking at it, I don't have a lot of answers. So
Judith, as a consumer, Judith, do you have a problem with this?
I do. It's bizarre. I mean, if I was looking at this screen, I would be going, what do they want? Okay, then I'd call my daughter who is educated and say, what does this mean? This is like doing your taxes, or you're afraid to check the wrong box.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is something that we need simplified before we dive into it. I think the suggestion that was given is, what are the rules? I thought that was a very good suggestion. Let's find out what this is. What are they really trying to get out of this?
Yeah, and that's what we'll bring each time
Yeah.
here.
Mhm.
What selecting each one of these really means, and what it means for the case, and scenarios in which we would want individuals to be selecting each option, so that I think that'll help us come up with more simplified terms to help folks pick the right option.
Yeah, I just feel like we're kind of like working in the clouds here. We don't, we'd just be spinning our wheels.
Yep. No, I agree.
Hey, James, are we going on a break here, or are we going to wait until?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just going to mention, hey, here's request 78 about updating the opening screen, the one you see all the time. But that will be your teaser, because we'll have that we'll take our 10-minute break. How about we come back at 12:11?
All right, thank you.
Okay, see you at 12:11.
All right.
And Judith, did you want to ask us a question?
Yeah, I do. Can I ask you now, and we can just get it out of the way? It doesn't matter who's here. I don't care. But my question is that I was at the Capitol.
Hi, everybody. We are now back from break.
Oh, what was that? Was that meow meow? Yes, we're back. We're back.
It's very talkative.
Yeah. Oh.
Let's work on request 78.
Yeah, let me share my screen again. There we go. Where we left off. And when Andrew comes on camera, he can talk about it too. But
sorry, I'm back. Just wasn't on camera. So yeah, request 78 is updating to clarify the reCAPTCHA verification process prior to obtaining access to the username password field. So if you could scroll down a little bit, this is how the current screen looks now. And as you can see, the username and password fields are grayed out. You can't type anything in there until you complete this "I am not a robot" and verify question. So when you click that, it's it'll pop up a grid of different images. It'll say like, select all of the buses in this picture. And once you complete that, I think logically you would say, okay, I've done that. I should now be able to enter my username and password. But the way that reCAPTCHA is designed is when that's completed, a user still has to click the verify button to the right of that before these fields are ungrayed and able to have the username and password entered in there. So this leads to confusion. We actually get a lot of calls with the online portal tech team and like, hey, I can't log into my account. And it ends up just being the design of this is not very user friendly. So this request is to update that to make this a little bit simpler. Due to like the limitations of how this works, it's not an option to just have it automatically verify once the reCAPTCHA is complete. We do need to have that additional click of verify. But I think we have a couple proposals of how it might be a little bit more user friendly. So the first one here, series of 2 screenshots, it would separate this process into two different screens essentially. So this first one, you would complete "I'm not a robot." Then before even seeing the option to enter username or password, you would have to click verify. And once you click verify, it would then show this second screen, which would be the option to enter the username or password. So with this proposal, kind of clarifies a little bit. It doesn't even show the ability to enter anything until that verify